Hey everybody, I know it's been quite some time. I am here in sunny Cartagena. This is Colombia. This is basically like the Miami of Colombia. This is a little view here of the terrace. I'm right down by the beach. The beach is basically to my left. I'm literally right on the beach. And I usually come here very often. This is basically what downtown Cartagena looks like. As you can see, some of the buildings are a little weather torn. As you can see right here, some of them need to be like either replastered or painted, etc. But this is basically what the downtown area looks like here in Cartagena. And I usually come here for vacation whenever I want to go to the beach area. Miami is way too overpriced to basically spend money. At least it's my opinion. This is basically what the apartment looks like here. A little painting. It's like a nice small little New York apartment. You probably pay $2,500, $3,000 in New York. I got to do some laundry over here. Got my laptop set up. I got to do some work, and of course the bedroom and then the bathroom is on the side. And this is basically what it looks like. You got yourself a nice little terrace, and this is basically where I'm staying at. I'm going to be in Cartagena for the better part of a month. This is basically where I'll be vacationing. Haven't had the opportunity to upload anything. It was a nightmare getting here. So it was basically a nightmare getting here. Had a couple of missed flights, delayed. People didn't document my flight correctly, and it ended up like almost took me 2 days to get here. I left Wednesday. I didn't get here till Friday, like Friday night, Friday late in the afternoon, like around 6 o'clock. I got here, and I left Wednesday. I left Wednesday night, and traveling was terrible. Airports were packed. A lot of flight cancellations, asking people, do you want to lay over? We'll pay you X, Y, and Z. And it's just because they don't have enough pilots, and that's related to the whole C-19 thing. A lot of pilots didn't want to take the jab, and so a lot of them were either put into early retirement or quit or whatever. Going to go do something else. It is what it is. And of course, that similar thing is happening in nursing. There's a lot of nurses that have retired. It's going to be like that moving forward. The country doesn't have the young people coming up behind it to pick up the slack in a lot of the technical areas, especially when it comes to things like STEM. America has pushed a lot of women into these positions, and unfortunately, the moment these women become pregnant, they just leave. I talked about that with doctors, with lawyers. It happens a lot with nurses. So you have a lot of these technical fields that are necessary for running a country. You need nurses, you need doctors, you need lawyers, etc. Yeah, you need engineers. And when you push a lot of women into these positions, the problem is that the moment that they get pregnant, a lot of them just want to be moms. They just want to be stay-at-home moms. And so the country loses a big part of the skilled workforce. And moving forward, then on top of that, you have a lot of racism against white people, etc., not being able to get certain jobs. And so they'll go off and they'll start businesses. They'll go off and start their own business. Or some people will just choose to do nothing, which is also what we're seeing. Huge portion of the population that just don't want to work. It's a huge portion of the population that just don't want to work. They believe in socialism. They're all for it. They see the government print money, and they're like, why don't we just print more money? And you see people talking about this, like, why do we have to pay taxes? Why don't we just print more money? And it's just as I had talked about many times when Adams had said that once the people, when John Adams had said, I believe it was John Adams or Benjamin Franklin, I believe it was John Adams, and he had said that once the people realize that they're able to vote for free money, they will, and the republic is over. And so that's why you keep hearing like Nancy Pelosi and all these different people every time they'll say, like this group over here, they're attacking our democracy. And I'm like, America is a constitutional republic. America is not a democracy, although it's acting like a democracy now that voting rights have been given to everybody. And this is the other side of giving everybody the privilege of voting. They think it's a right. You have the right to vote. You don't. It was always those who had skin in the game. It was the people who came here first and fought for the land. Then it was the slaves who ended up fighting in the war. And then there were those who owned land. And those are basically people who put skin in the game. And that's why men who basically wanted to vote, you had to be willing to go to war. Right? You had to sign up for the draft, for the selective service. But then they gave women the right to vote. Men didn't have a right to vote. Men don't have a right to vote. You only can vote if you're willing to sign up for the selective service. At least that's how it was. I don't know if it's still like that today. I forget. But that's how it was before. If you wanted to have a say in how the government ran, well, then you had to be willing to go to war for that government. It's obvious, right? You have to have skin in the game. But then when you give a huge portion of the population, you give the other 50% of the population the ability to vote, and these people will just vote for free stuff. And it's typically what women do. Women typically, just when you look at the numbers, and I've talked about this extensively in many of my videos, that once you give women the ability to gain resources without having to in essence fight for those resources, right? Women have to compete for men. Men have to compete for women. It's not competition between men competition between men and competition for women, right? Women are a resource. The men are able to acquire resources, and so these are things that typically people have to compete over. But when you live in a country where people don't want to compete, they think that they deserve everything that they're given. Well, this is what you get. You get a country that begins to spiral, and so this is basically where we are in America. America is going to continue to go downhill from here. Things are not going to get better. I mean, how can you? When the people are corrupt, and this is the problem. The problem is that the people are corrupt. And when the people are corrupt, how do you elect a righteous government? And that's basically what the Constitution was written for. The Constitution was written for a moral people. And I believe it was Adams that had said that. I forget. But I remember reading the quote before. That the Constitution was written for a moral people. And so obviously if you're a responsible individual, that's why you look back 30, 40 years ago, or maybe a little bit further back, they used to teach how to shoot guns at school. Do you think they would be able to do that now with today's kids? No. That's when people are not responsible. And of course, a big portion of that is related to the lack of fathers. But that's because men don't want to take responsibility for women anymore. It's easier for men to earn $50K a year and not have a care in the world. You can live in an apartment that's basically the size of this and you'd be good, right? I mean, shoot, this is an expensive New York City apartment. If this place was in New York, you'd probably be paying $2,500, $3,000, depending upon where that apartment is, especially with that little terrace there. And that would go for a lot of money. And a small little apartment like that, you don't need to worry about. All you have to worry about is yourself as a man. It doesn't take much for a man to live. But now if you have a family, right, you have skin in the game. You want to know that your family is well taken care of. You want to provide extra resources, so you go out and work harder. You go out and you work harder so that you can send your kids to private school, so that you can go on vacations. The wife is always going to ask you for things. You need to have a car or multiple cars. But when you don't have a family, you don't need none of that stuff. So you don't need to work as hard. And this is basically the route that the country is going. This is one of the importance of having families, especially for men. It gives men purpose. It gives men the desire to drive and move forward. When that is removed, you just get a bunch of people that just don't want to work. Why do I have to strive for excellence? Why do I have to strive for more? And that's why those at the top, those big businesses, they can. There's no competition. There's nobody willing to compete with them. So all the money just flows right back to them. That's why they had what they refer to as the greatest transfer of wealth of all time, and that's just because there's nobody competing with any of these other there's nobody competing with any of these other big businesses. And so when there's no competition, everything just kind of flows in one direction. The people are happy because they got some stuff. The government gives out some free money, and the businesses gain wealth. And that's basically the route that the country is going. But eventually, that all goes away. You eventually run out of other people's money. And it happens with all socialist countries. Just look, it happened with Venezuela, it happened with Greece, it's happening currently again with Greece. It's happening in many other countries. It happened in Cuba. The people in Cuba that were protesting and they had the American flags, those are socialists. They're just living the tail end of where America is now. Venezuela had the slut walks. They voted for other people's money to the point where they were eating out of garbage cans. And the Colombian people, because for the same reason, elected a leftist president. And if they continue to go that route, and a lot of it is if they gave Venezuelans the right to vote, if they became citizens in Colombia, these very same people are going to vote for the very same programs or the very same laws that destroyed their country in Venezuela. It's like why Americans say for people who flee from New York, leave your ideology there. Remember what destroyed that state there and don't vote the same way here. Don't make here the way you made there. And it's very true. But unfortunately, that's just a route. If people can vote for free stuff, they will. Why not? Why wouldn't they? There's no penalty for doing that. And of course it favors the government, because then that requires bigger government. Personal responsibility, when you take personal responsibility, you don't need the government. You don't need the government. And so it's in the government's interest for you to promote for more programs. It gives them more power over the people. You have to jump through these hoops for you to get your little stimmy chip. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to get ready to go out and get some breakfast. It's about 8 o'clock in the morning here, 8:30 I believe in Cartagena. It's about an hour difference if I was in New York. So New York could be 9:30. Anyway, I'm going to leave it here. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Hope you're doing great. Continue to work hard to be able to provide for yourself. There are going to be opportunities to buy some cheap land or to buy some cheap housing, and you're going to want it as far away from major cities. This is always the case. It's nothing new. This is nothing, as I say, in the book of Ecclesiastes, there is nothing new under the sun. And what happened in many of those other countries that collapsed will happen in America eventually. Anyway, leave it here. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.